I stood on the desolate highway, my thumb extended in the hopes of catching a ride. The sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the empty road. After what felt like an eternity, a battered pickup truck screeched to a halt in front of me, its rusty frame rattling with each breath. The driver, a weathered middle-aged man with a scruffy beard and piercing eyes, motioned for me to climb in. As I settled into the passenger seat, the truck's interior exuded a pungent mix of oil and old sweat. The man's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. He offered me a crooked smile, his eyes darting nervously around as if expecting something lurking in the shadows. Unease crept over me, but I dismissed it as my overactive imagination. The man's conversation was friendly at first, recounting his days as a long-haul trucker and the ghosts of the road he had encountered. I chuckled at his tales, assuming they were nothing more than urban legends passed down through the trucker community. But as the miles passed, the man's demeanor changed. His voice lowered to a whisper, and his eyes filled with an eerie intensity. He spoke of encounters with malevolent spirits that haunted the highways, their twisted forms appearing in his rearview mirror and vanishing without a trace. Chills ran down my spine as he described a particularly harrowing night when he picked up a hitchhiker who vanished into thin air moments later. He confessed to feeling a presence in his truck, an unseen passenger whose icy breath caressed his neck on long, solitary drives. My heart pounded, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I mustered the courage to ask the man to let me out, to find another way to my destination. His eyes widened, panic etched across his face. He refused, claiming that it was too dangerous to stop on this desolate stretch of road. With each passing minute, my fear intensified. I pleaded with the man, my voice trembling, but he remained resolute, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter. Desperation consumed me as I realized I was trapped in a truck with a man haunted by spectral entities, his mind teetering on the edge of sanity. Summoning every ounce of courage, I flung open the door and leaped out, my legs hitting the pavement with a jolt. As the truck disappeared into the night, I watched the man's bewildered expression through the rearview mirror, haunted by the chilling encounter with a driver who had become a prisoner of the ghostly realm. The sun had long set, and I found myself standing alone on a remote stretch of highway, the darkness closing in around me. A sense of vulnerability gnawed at my core, but I pushed aside my apprehensions and held out my thumb, hoping for salvation. Minutes turned into hours, and just as despair settled in, a sleek sedan pulled up, its headlights cutting through the night. A woman with a captivating smile greeted me from behind the wheel, her voice infused with warmth and charm. Her presence exuded confidence and sophistication, drawing me in like a moth to a flame. Eagerly, I hopped into the passenger seat, intoxicated by the allure of her company. As the car glided through the night, the woman's conversation took a peculiar turn. She spoke of her ability to communicate with the dead, claiming to be a medium gifted with the power to bridge the gap between the living and the spirit realm. I listened intently, a mix of fascination and trepidation coursing through my veins. Her stories grew increasingly macabre. She described encounters with vengeful spirits, their tormented whispers echoing in her ears. She spoke of an abandoned mansion nestled deep in the woods, where she communed with the deceased and bore witness to the horrors that lay hidden from mortal eyes. Unease settled over me as the woman's eyes flickered with an otherworldly intensity. I felt a presence in the car, an unseen force that sent shivers down my spine. Shadows danced on the periphery of my vision, their ethereal forms flickering in and out of existence. As the car approached a desolate crossroad, the woman's voice turned cold and distant. She slowed the vehicle to a stop and turned to me, her smile now a twisted smirk. Panic surged through my veins as I realized I had unwittingly stepped into a trap, ensnared by a supernatural predator. With a sudden burst of strength, I wrenched open the car door and fled into the night, the sound of the woman's laughter haunting my every step. I ran until my legs gave out, collapsing on the side of the road, my heart pounding in my chest. I had narrowly escaped the clutches of a medium who used her abilities to lure unsuspecting victims into a realm of darkness and despair. Night had fallen as I stood by the roadside, my thumb extended in a desperate plea for a ride. The sound of my own heartbeat echoed in my ears, mingling with the rustling leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. Just as despair began to seep into my bones, headlights pierced the darkness, and a vintage Volkswagen van rolled to a stop. The driver, a wiry man with long, unkempt hair and a beard that seemed to have a life of its own, beckoned me to join him on the psychedelic journey ahead. Excitement coursed through my veins as I climbed into the back, the van's interior a kaleidoscope of vibrant colors and swirling patterns. As the van meandered down the road, the driver's jovial demeanor shifted. He spoke of his nomadic lifestyle, traversing the country in search of spiritual enlightenment. But beneath his carefree facade, darkness lurked, an obsession with the occult and the forbidden. He regaled me with tales of his encounters with witches, warlocks, and ancient rituals performed in the depths of the wilderness. His eyes glittered with a fevered intensity as he described a hidden coven, a gathering of sinister forces that sought to harness supernatural powers for their nefarious purposes. My unease grew with each passing mile, the driver's ramblings becoming more unhinged. He revealed his intention to bring me to the coven, to offer me as a sacrifice in their macabre rituals, believing that my soul held a unique power coveted by the dark forces that controlled their ranks. Panic surged through my veins as I realized I was trapped in a van hurtling toward my own demise. The driver's grip on the wheel tightened, his laughter echoing in my ears like the cackling of a madman. Desperation consumed me as I frantically searched for an escape, my mind racing against the impending doom. Summoning a burst of adrenaline-fueled courage, I lunged forward, grappling with the driver for control of the van. In the ensuing chaos, the vehicle careened off the road, crashing into a ditch. As I stumbled out of the wreckage, the driver's twisted smile etched into my memory. I vowed never to hitchhike again, haunted by the close encounter with a deranged driver who sought to deliver me to a coven of darkness. The night air was thick with anticipation as I stood by the roadside, my thumb outstretched in a desperate bid for a ride. Hours had passed without a single car stopping, and a sense of unease settled over me. Just when I had resigned myself to spending the night on the cold, desolate highway, a sleek black sedan pulled up. The driver, a middle-aged man with a polished demeanor, exuded an air of mystery. His piercing gaze seemed to penetrate my soul as if he could see through the facade I presented to the world. Hesitant but drawn to the allure of the unknown, I climbed into the passenger seat. As the car glided through the night, the man's conversation turned to tales of supernatural encounters. He spoke of a haunted mansion nestled deep within the woods, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred. Intrigued, I listened as he described the restless spirits that inhabited the house, their mournful cries echoing through the halls. The man's voice took on a somber tone as he confessed his fascination with the occult. He admitted to dabbling in dark rituals, attempting to commune with the spirits that dwelled in the haunted mansion. He spoke of the price he had paid for his curiosity, the whispers that plagued his dreams, and the sinister entities that haunted his every waking moment. As the car approached a desolate crossroad, a chill washed over me, and I realized I had fallen into a trap. The man's eyes glinted with an otherworldly malevolence, and I could no longer deny the truth. I was in the presence of a dark sorcerer, a master of the supernatural who sought to claim my soul for his own. With a surge of adrenaline, I unbuckled my seatbelt and flung open the car door, leaping out into the night. The man's laughter followed me as I fled, his voice twisted with a mixture of rage and amusement. I ran until my legs gave out, vowing never to hitchhike again, haunted by the brush with a sorcerer whose hunger for power threatened to consume everything in its path. The moon hung high in the night sky as I stood on the deserted highway, my thumb extended in a silent plea for a ride. A biting wind cut through the air, whispering secrets of the forsaken road. Just when despair threatened to overwhelm me, a vintage Cadillac glided to a stop, its chrome exterior gleaming in the pale moonlight. The driver, an elderly gentleman with a weary smile and eyes that held a lifetime of stories, welcomed me into his vintage chariot. The car's interior oozed nostalgia, with plush leather seats and the faint scent of aged leather. I settled in, eager to hear the tales this seasoned traveler had to share. As the miles unfurled beneath the Cadillac's wheels, the driver's voice took on a haunted quality. He spoke of the hitchhikers he had picked up over the years, souls lost in the purgatory between life and death. His encounters with these spectral travelers had left an indelible mark on his spirit, forever tethering him to the ethereal realm. He described a fateful night when he picked up a hitchhiker who vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a lingering sense of melancholy. The driver confessed to feeling the weight of these lost souls, their presence an ever-present reminder of the thin veil that separates the living from the dead. As the Cadillac approached a desolate crossroad, the driver's eyes glazed over, his gaze fixed on something unseen. Panic fluttered in my chest as I realized we were no longer alone. Shadows danced on the edge of my vision, their ghostly forms weaving through the car, their mournful whispers filling the air. A sense of foreboding enveloped me, and I knew I had unwittingly become entangled in a spectral trap. The driver's smile turned sinister, his hands gripping the steering wheel with an unnatural strength. I pleaded with him to let me out, my voice trembling with fear. But his gaze remained distant, lost in the realm of the supernatural. Summoning every ounce of courage, I reached for the door handle and flung it open, my legs hitting the pavement with a jolt. As I fled into the night, the echoes of the driver's fading laughter followed me, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked within the realm of hitchhiking. I vowed never to venture down that haunted road again, forever haunted by the encounter with a driver whose connection to the spirit world threatened to consume us both.